Imagine dive into a deep story, full of twists, that challenges our understanding and touches on universal themes such as justice and perseverance. We are talking about Tamar, a woman who, wherever she goes, leaves her mark on history, but who also faces a series of inexplicable tragedies. Just imagine, Tamar lives in a time where the fate of women is, to a large extent, determined by their husbands. She was an ordinary woman, part of a family with strict traditions and complex responsibilities. But his story is anything but ordinary. Every time you get married, hope seems to emerge, but a shadow also appears. One by one, their husbands meet untimely ends. For everyone around her, this becomes frightening, almost as if there is a curse on Tamar. Is what's happening just a coincidence? Or is there something bigger, invisible, guiding the steps of this woman and her family? These questions gain strength throughout Tamar's life, as she continues trying to reconstruct her story in the midst of so many losses and mysteries. Destiny puts her face to face with difficult choices and challenges that few would imagine facing. And it is exactly on this journey between loss and hope that Tamar's story comes to life. With each loss, with each new step, she seems to be reborn with greater strength. This story not only captures us, it invites us to reflect on what is truly fair and what it means to persevere in the face of injustice and life's difficulties. Tamar's story makes us think about how difficulties can shape character and how, even in the face of the greatest trials, there is the possibility of something greater and transformative. In the Bible, the name Tamar appears linked to two women of great importance but with very different stories. On one side, we have Tamar, the daughter of the powerful King David. His story, in itself, is full of pain and challenges, but that is not what we will talk about now. Our attention turns to another Tamar, Judah's daughter-in-law, who occupies a vital role in the lineage leading to the birth of Jesus. Imagine Tamar in a distant time, when family traditions and responsibilities were followed with absolute rigor. She marries into the family of Judah, one of Jacob's sons, and carries a great responsibility, ensuring the continuity of a lineage that, in the future, would become crucial for the fulfillment of the divine promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Tamar's path with Judah and her family would not be easy. From the beginning, the young woman carries the weight of a destiny full of uncertainties and challenges that would test her faith and resilience. Unlike other women in the Bible, Tamar is not known for miracles or exploits. Its story is, first and foremost, a fight for dignity and the right to exist and contribute to a greater purpose. Your persistence in the face of adversity becomes a testament to your inner strength and determination. Thus, between ancient traditions and family dilemmas, the story of Tamar, Judah's daughter-in-law, begins to unfold. A narrative in which your strength and intelligence will be put to the test, showing that even ordinary people can play extraordinary roles in the great history of God's people. Judah, the fourth son of Jacob and Leah, occupies a unique place in the history of the people of Israel. He is not the firstborn nor an ordinary son. Judah is the bearer of a promise that would change the destiny of his descendants and all humanity. According to the prophecy revealed to Jacob in his last years, the scepter, a symbol of power and leadership, would never depart from the house of Judah, and from his lineage a ruler would emerge whom all nations would obey. This promise is a direct prophecy of the coming of a special leader, the promised Messiah. In the biblical context, Judah's importance goes far beyond his actions, or his life in particular. It represents the founding of a tribe that would become the spiritual and political heart of Israel. From his lineage, great figures would emerge, such as King David, whose reign is remembered as the height of Israel's unity and strength, and later, Jesus Christ, who would fulfill the promise of salvation and liberation not only for the Jewish people, but for all humanity. Furthermore, Judah's character undergoes remarkable transformations throughout his life. Although he has made mistakes in the past, demonstrating impulsiveness and even harshness, he also shows regret and genuine leadership at crucial moments. When his brother Benjamin's life is at risk, it is Judah who offers himself as a guarantee, putting himself in his place and showing a nobility that he had not yet revealed. With this trajectory, Judah establishes a strong, faithful lineage destined for an essential role. He not only represents a patriarch of his family, but also a predecessor of a spiritual kingdom that would survive empires and challenges throughout the centuries. And it is precisely in the story of Tamar, his daughter-in-law, that we see how this lineage faces surprising obstacles in order for God's promise to be fulfilled. Judah's presence is a central piece in this divine plot, where, even with his flaws, he is chosen to be the bearer of an eternal promise. Tamar's marriage to Judah's firstborn, named Er, seemed like a sign of hope for the family's continuity. As Er's wife, Tamar was ready to fulfill her role and contribute to the future of Judah's lineage. However, what seemed like a promising beginning soon turns into a tragedy. Er, still young, dies suddenly, leaving no children. Er's death is described in the Bible as a consequence of his misconduct in the eyes of God, a behavior that took him away from the paths of justice, and which, according to the story, ended up sealing his fate prematurely. With Er's death, Tamar finds herself a widow, and at that time, this meant not only the loss of a husband, but also social and financial vulnerability, as she had no children to inherit her father's position. However, for cases like this, the levirate law came into play. This ancient law, derived from the Latin word lever, which means brother-in-law, established that the younger brother of the deceased must marry the widow. This second marriage aimed to protect the widow, guarantee her an heir, and maintain the continuity of the deceased's name and assets. Thus, Tamar would be cared for, and Judah's family would keep its lineage intact. Based on the law, Judah's second son, Onan, is given the responsibility of marrying Tamar. He should, therefore, not only honor the memory of his brother, but also provide a future for the lineage of Judah. Tamar, as Onan's wife, places her hope in this new union, as her dream of starting a family and seeing continuity of her first husband's legacy seemed finally possible. However, Onan hesitates. He understands that by fathering children with Tamar, these descendants would be considered his brother Er's heirs, and not his own direct heirs. This thought leads him to a selfish act. He refuses to fully fulfill his role as husband and brother, using subterfuge to avoid conceiving children with Tamar. The Bible tells us that because of this act, considered disrespectful and selfish in the eyes of God, Onan also meets a tragic end. He dies, leaving Tamar a widow again and still childless. Thus, Tamar's dream of ensuring the continuity of the lineage seems to fade away. She loses her second husband, and with him another chance to find stability and fulfill the promise of their union. The story takes an unexpected turn, and Tamar, now twice a widow, finds herself once again at the mercy of family decisions and traditions. Tamar's second marriage, now to Onan, brings with it renewed hope for the young widow, but also increasing tension. According to levirate law, Onan had the duty to marry Tamar and ensure that she had an heir. This heir, even though he was Onan's biological son, would be legally considered the son of his deceased brother, Er, and would therefore inherit the name and assets that belonged to Er. For Tamar, this was a chance to move forward, honor the memory of her first husband, and secure her position and dignity within the family. However, Onan did not share this perspective. Instead of embracing his role, he allows Tamar to continue in his life, but purposefully avoids fathering a child with her. His thinking was simple and selfish. He did not want the fruits of his effort and his union with Tamar to be credited to his brother. With this attitude, Onan puts his personal interests above family duty and Tamar's protection, acting to satisfy his own desires without assuming any responsibility. The Bible describes this act with a clear picture. Onan spilled his seed on the ground whenever he lay with Tamar, an intentional action to prevent her from becoming pregnant. This behavior was a direct breach of their commitment, a form of betrayal of their duty to protect and ensure Tamar's future. Onan's practice is seen, in the scriptures, as a disrespect for divine law and an insult to the memory of his brother. This selfish and disrespectful behavior results in a tragic outcome. Onan, like his brother before him, is punished by death. His decision to place his desires and interests above duty and Tamar results in divine condemnation, a direct response to his negligence. Thus, Tamar finds herself, for the second time, a widow and childless. Ona's death leaves an even greater void in her life, and she finds herself vulnerable again, without the protection of a husband and without the security of an heir. Now, Tamar carries an even heavier burden. Without a husband and without a child, she remains trapped by the uncertainties of the future, in a culture where the absence of descendants meant isolation and helplessness. Her story, however, was still far from over, and her determination would lead her to seek, in an unexpected way, a way out for the continuity of her lineage. After the death of his two eldest sons, Er and Onan, Judah finds himself in a complicated position. He has the obligation to fulfill the Levirate law with Tamar, his daughter-in-law, and offer his third son, Shelah, to marry her and continue the lineage of his firstborn. Tamar, having lost two husbands and having no children, waited with hope that Shelah would finally fulfill the family promise and guarantee her the heir who would preserve Er's name and secure her within the family. Judah, however, begins to be filled with fear. In his mind, the idea of handing over Shelah to Tamar becomes frightening. He fears that Shelah's union with Tamar will bring a similar fate to that which befell his brothers. Was Tamar really cursed, or was there perhaps something that made their union fatal to her husbands? These thoughts and fears begin to dominate Judah's mind, and he starts to postpone the promise he made to Tamar, avoiding acting directly, but keeping her in a state of indefinite waiting. With that, he tells Tamar that Shelah is still too young for marriage, asking her to return to her father's house and wait until the boy reaches the appropriate age. Tamar, faithful to traditions and commitment, returns to her father's house, but remains hopeful that at some point, the promise will be fulfilled. She understands that, as the widow of two brothers, her position in society and her protection depend on this union. As the years pass and Shelah reaches marriageable age, it becomes clear to Tamar that Judah has no intention of keeping his word. The promise now seems empty, an endless postponement. Judah, possibly afraid of facing another loss, chooses the safety of his youngest son over his commitment to Tamar and the continuity of the lineage that he was responsible for preserving. For Tamar, the realization that this promise will never be fulfilled is painful. She, who had already lost so much, now sees that even the last bond that could secure her future is crumbling. And so, Tamar finds herself once again aimless, without the support she was due. But this situation does not end with her silence and submission. What Judah did not know was that Tamar had an iron determination and a sharp intelligence, which would lead her to devise an ingenious plan to claim her right and ensure the future of her lineage, albeit through unexpected paths. Faced with the reality that Judah would never fulfill his promise to marry his son Shelah to her, Tamar, an astute and determined woman, decides to take control of her own destiny. She had done her part. She was faithful. She waited patiently. But now she understood that Judah's postponement was not temporary. He had no intention of securing her an heir. So, to guarantee her right and preserve the continuity of Judah's lineage, she devises a bold plan, a plan that would require courage and dexterity. Knowing that Judah would be taking a trip to supervise his shepherds and sheep shearers, Tamar prepares for the meeting. She disguises herself by placing a veil over her face, a common practice at the time among women who worked as prostitutes, ensuring that her real identity is hidden. Her disguise was so well done that, when positioning herself on the path where Judah would pass, he did not recognize her as his daughter-in-law and took her for a local prostitute. Judah then approaches her and proposes a deal. Tamar, always astute, realizes that this is her chance to secure a future and obtain the necessary guarantees. She agrees to meet with him, but first demands payment. Judah, who was not carrying any money or valuable animals at the time, promises to send him a goat from his flock as payment. However, Tamar, who did not want to risk losing the opportunity, demands an immediate pledge that symbolizes the commitment. Judah, without suspecting his true identity, agrees and gives him 3 personal objects: his seal, a cord, and his staff. These items had great meaning. The seal, a unique piece that bore the mark of Judah, was used to authenticate documents and transactions. The cord, a piece that Judah wore with him, was also a symbol of his identity. And the staff, an object that represented authority and position, was not just any item, but an extension of Judah itself. By handing these objects to Tamar, he was unknowingly entrusting her with unquestionable proof of his identity and his commitment. After the meeting, Tamar returns to her house, still wearing her disguise, and hides the precious objects. Later, when Judah tries to send the promised goat, he discovers that the prostitute with whom he had made the deal has simply disappeared. The men of the village don't know who it is, and the mysterious woman who met Judah on the way remains a mystery. Without understanding what had happened, Judah gave up looking for the prostitute and resumed his life. Tamar's plan, however, begins to unfold the way she expected. Months later, signs of pregnancy appear, and the rumor spreads quickly. Judah, indignant, hears that his daughter-in-law, now a widow and disgraced in the eyes of society, was pregnant. He considers this a serious moral transgression and, driven by anger, orders her to be taken away to be punished. Tamar, however calm and determined, has in her hands the evidence that can not only save her, but also expose the truth. At the moment of confrontation, Tamar presents the seal, the cord, and the staff. Upon seeing the objects, Judah immediately realizes that he is the father of the child she is expecting. Bewildered and ashamed, Judah recognizes his own fault and admits that Tamar is more righteous than he, for she acted to secure the right he had neglected. In this way, Tamar, with courage and wisdom, ensures not only the continuity of Judah's lineage, but also its place in history. Months pass since Tamar's strategic meeting with Judah, and it soon becomes evident to everyone around that Tamar is pregnant. The news spreads quickly and reaches Judah, who is outraged. For him, Tamar had dishonored the family by becoming pregnant out of wedlock, breaking the moral code of the time. Feeling betrayed and ashamed, Judah orders her to be brought before him to face the consequences of her supposed transgression. When confronted, Tamar remains calm. She knew her life was at stake, but she was also sure the truth was on her side. When the pressure increases and the moment of her conviction seems close, Tamar reveals irrefutable proof of her innocence and the identity of the child's father. She presents the pledged object she had received from Judah that night: the seal, the cord, and the staff. Upon seeing these items, Judah immediately recognizes what he had done and understands Tamar's cunning. He understands that, contrary to what he had thought, Tamar was not guilty of a transgression. In fact, she only fought to secure a right that he himself had denied her. Judah is overcome by a mixture of regret and admiration. Publicly, he declares, "She is more righteous than I, because I did not give her my son Shelah as I promised." This recognition not only saves Tamar's life, but also restores her honor in the eyes of the entire community. Judah understands that Tamar acted in accordance with justice and family tradition, taking the initiative that he himself had failed to fulfill. The act of acknowledging his own guilt and admitting Tamar's righteousness is a moment of redemption for Judah, and in that moment, he understands the depth of this woman's determination and resilience. Months later, Tamar gives birth to twins, the boys Perez and Zerah. During the birth, an intriguing scene takes place. Zerah initially extends his hand and receives a red ribbon, symbolizing that he would be the firstborn. However, he retreats and Perez is born first, becoming the true firstborn, something symbolic and full of meanings, especially in the context of divine inversions and God's unexpected choices. Perez, the son of Tamar and Judah, becomes the ancestor of a lineage of great importance, from which King David and, finally, Jesus, the Messiah, would descend. The story of Tamar, a seemingly ordinary woman, shows that, amid injustices and obstacles, God can use even the most unlikely situations to fulfill his purposes. Tamar is remembered as a figure of courage and faith, someone who, even in the face of overwhelming challenges, fought for what was fair and became a fundamental part of the divine plan of redemption. Tamar's story is a powerful example of how faith, courage, and determination can turn even the darkest challenges into victories. Tamar, with her cunning and perseverance, did not allow injustice to define her destiny. In a society where her position as a widow could easily condemn her to vulnerability and oblivion, she acted intelligently to claim the right to secure her lineage. Tamar became not just a wife and a mother, but a woman whose strength shaped the future of a lineage destined to bring redemption to the world. Along her journey, Tamar faces and overcomes Judah's negligence and her husband's losses, trusting in her ability to discern the right path even in the face of adverse circumstances. This story highlights the importance of commitment and the value of divine promise, remembering that often those who persevere end up being the instruments of significant changes in history. Ultimately, Tamar remains a foundational figure in biblical tradition, a woman whose faith and resilience were part of divine purpose. Thus, Tamar's story resonates deeply as a testimony of justice and hope. She teaches us that, even if situations are unfavorable, God honors those who fight for what is fair and what is right. Tamar is a living example that through courageous decisions and perseverance, we can participate in something greater than we imagine, becoming essential for the fulfillment of divine promises. Amidst the complexities of life, if you've made it this far, I understand that you must have enjoyed the content. Therefore, I ask you to subscribe to the channel and leave your opinion about the story in the comments. Hugs and stay with God.